Hello and welcome back to Star Citizen, where in a continuation of a current miniseries we're gonna be taking a look at the Avenger series this time, which is always often recommended by people experienced in the game as kind of the perfect beginner ship that doesn't dedicate you to any role too much, but can pretty much do most of the things that are in the game right now to some extent. So let's take a look at it. I think it's a pretty beautiful ship. It's often been called the Penguin, and just by the form and colors you can kind of guess why. Not entirely sure what the lights and the wings are there for, but it definitely looks pretty cool. Different from the Hornet that we looked at last time, the ship also has an interior that you can walk on and, store cargo in the little back area here. You might also be able to store your delivery boxes somewhere along the way. It's not particularly luxurious, the interior. It doesn't have much space that you can really do much things with, but it's there, and it's there for really everything that you need. You have a bed, so you can log out, and it's pretty much a good way to describing this ship is just it has basically everything you really need, to be honest. This is the Titan variant of the Stalker, of the Avenger series. There's also the Stalker. I'm not entirely sure what the Stalker actually does. As far as I can tell, it's not really in the game at the moment anyway. I think it's for bounty hunting, so it's gonna be supposedly have some way that you can store a criminal that you captured in some sort of small cell or whatnot, or a trunk, I don't know. So that's what the Stalker variant is for. The Titan is kind of the general purpose ship of a series. And there's also the Warlock, which has an EMP device equipped to it, which, depending on the specific patch, was totally broken, totally useless, and pretty much nothing in between. So, if you want an EMP ship, it might also be a cheap choice. But it's probably not going to be the best EMP ship that it's in the that is in the game right now. But I really can't say much about EMP because I've never really used it to a huge extent. Just been shot at with EMP a couple of times, but that's about it. But let's talk about weapon and usability of the ship now. Basically, especially if you watched the last episode, you might be a little bit surprised that the base configuration of the ship is actually pretty usable. The base configuration, let's take a quick look outside again. The ship also has two mounted weapons underneath the wings, if you want to call it that, and one that's mounted in the nose. The one that's mounted in the nose is a size 4 slot, potentially, though if you're using gimbals, it's gonna be transformed to a size 3 slot, obviously. And the ones under the wings are size 3 naturally, and can, of course, if you use gimbals, will become a size 2 slot. Which is pretty decent, which a pretty decent amount of firepower. I went in with a little bit of an unorthodox setup here, which we'll see in a second. But the base default loadout is already pretty much well usable because it has an old gimbaled weapons. Because it has an old gimbal weapons loadout at the very onset of you buying the ship, and the center weapons mount has a size 3 Gatling gun, and the wings have size 2 laser repeaters, which work fine. It's not the most specialized. It's not the most specialized weaponry in the game, but it does its job. Especially with the gimbal and how powerful gimbal is at the moment. So. Again, there's really nothing wrong with the ship, and it has everything you really need in order to do bounty missions. I'm pretty sure with that amount of firepower you would have not that many problems doing most of the combat missions that are in the game right now. You may take a moment to destroy ships like the Constellation and Valkyrie if they show up, which is why I switched the loadout a little bit, but aside from that, it's pretty much, you can just use it right when you get the ship. There is still upgrade potential. The power plant is okay, but it's at a point where if you're shooting and also the shield has to regenerate at the same time, it's barely being able to handle the stress. So if you want to invest some in-game bucks after a few missions that you did with this ship, then you're probably looking at replacing the power plant, and of course It doesn't have the very best quantum drive that is in the game right now, but really no ship has that by default. So if you want to invest some money to upgrading it, sure, it'll take it and it'll become more effective at whatever you want to do with it. But other than the Hornet that we talked about last time, you can actually just use it right from the get-go. You don't really need to spend additional resources into just getting it to a point where you can actually do something with it, which is pretty nice, and which is why a lot of people have always recommended this as a kind of... If you just start out with Star Citizen, but you want to invest a little bit more than just your base Aurora or Mustang, or those few people that have a 100 series ship, maybe that too. But if you want to invest a little bit more, the Avenger is pretty cheap. It's on a very low end of ship prices that exist in the game, and it does a really great job at pretty much anything. And once you figured out the Avenger, you won't have much. We won't have many issues figuring out anything else later. And you can already pretty effectively do all sorts of missions that exist. So I decelerated a little bit too late here. Apologies. Well, enemies in here anyway. But let's hope it shows up. Enemy? Did you bug out? Do you want to bug out on me again? Well, please don't.
Contact.
Thank you. Well, his friends showed up, but not the enemy themselves. Oh, they showed up in a hammerhead. Oh, this is gonna be something else. Great. I'm not sure if I'm gonna be able to handle the hammerhead in this ship, but we'll find out, I guess. But first, let's take care of the escorts. As you'll see in a second, the guns I've installed here are what's called scatter guns. You can basically imagine it as shotguns, but in space, you know? I just fire a huge burst of particles that on ranges higher than, you know, pretty much spitting distance and against a fighter craft probably won't hit much and won't do much damage, but if all of those projectiles hit a target, like a huge target like that hammerhead down there, they can do some pretty impressive damage for their size. Like, they have, if all projectiles hit, they have like about twice the damage potential that any other weapons in their size does, so it's pretty neat. But do need to be careful not to get smoked by that hammerhead. Maybe we'll add some missiles here too. I need to be faster here. Because those turrets, nah man. Those turrets are annoying. Come on. Alright, we've got one down. There's also are you fucking shitting me? Jesus. Alright. Come on. Should almost be dead. At this point, maybe I need to get a little bit closer, but... yeah. Come on. Alright, come on. Alright. One target down, hammerhead to go. Holy fucking shit, man. It's moving pretty quickly. not even gaining on it. We can change that. Alright. This range we can start shooting at it. No, I think we're not doing enough damage. We don't have any armor piercing. Friggin' hammerhead, man. Let's try for a little more, but I think we don't have a way to bypass the shield, and we're not doing almost enough damage with our weapons. But it's pretty close, and just for a small ship like this to be just barely not make it through the shield is pretty impressive in my book. Maybe I found a better corner where it can't shoot at me, but it's a hammerhead, you know? It has so many turrets that would need quite a few players to effectively use. But of course the AI doesn't have that problem. So it's a bit unfair if that was able to be destroyed by just one guy with an Avenger. Not saying that the Avenger is bad, but the just one guy part is where I kind of have a problem, because there's like at least 4 to 5 turrets burning down on me no matter where I approach it from. Yeah, I'm not gonna proceed that any further. That's fucking ridiculous. But we did smoke that Valkyrie pretty quickly, as you saw, and I haven't seen a hammerhead appear in this patch at all in those missions, so you know, that was a first. I wasn't really prepared for that mentally. Alright, so let's try the other target then. Fucking hammerhead, man. Game's throwing me, oh, you want to demonstrate something? No, here's a hammerhead, man. Makes things a little more interesting. Oh dear. Ship's still looking pretty fine. When I got here, I had a very small engagement with someone, and the ship looked horrible after it. But here, after, you know, a shootout with a hammerhead that almost killed the ship, ship's apparently doing fine. So that's a bit weird, at least. The whole damage state system is a little bit strange at times. We did lose some piece of our very outer part of our wing. Which, oh no, the lights are gone, you know. Anyway, so, is there another waypoint closer? No, that won't help much, but a little bit.
Weapon systems offline. Quantum travel initiated.
Alright, let's try the other mission. I think at the 8K there shouldn't be any chance of hammerhead appearing. Also interesting that the hammerhead has such a huge signature that I could still track it. But maybe that was just a bug, because now it's disappeared. Alright, but as you've seen, it's a pretty decent ship. If you go with a more conservative loadout, then fighting will be just like in most other ships, really. Like, I don't know, I think it's it very favorably compares with a lot of ships. Like, the best that the 300 series is able to do, the 325A, is basically the same in terms of weapons loadout. I think it has fewer shields than this. This has 2 shields, actually. I didn't upgrade the shields. Maybe with upgraded shields we would have gotten less damage and all that. So maybe if we optimize the equipment a little bit further, and also added a ballistic scattergun for one of our laser scatterguns instead of the laser scattergun, maybe we would have had also some shield piercing and would have been able to kill it slowly at some point. But, you know, I don't want to be sitting here recording me slowly dismantling a hammerhead for 30 minutes. I've been there, done that. Don't really need to have it on video, really. But aside from that, compared to the Arrow, it has more guns, because the Arrow effectively only has 3 size 3 slots, though One of them can be 2 size 1 turreted instead, so if you were going gimbal, it might be almost equal in terms of firepower, but potentially the Arrow is worse in terms of firepower, and it doesn't have the additional functionality that the Avenger has. It's a little bit smaller, of course. You know, the Arrow is even more compact than this, so you might get shot at less and all that. But I think the Avenger is small enough, and we didn't get shot at much, even though we were kind of being shot at by lots of turrets. So I think it's still fine. Though you can't just simply rely on your small size. Unlike the Arrow, which you don't really need to maneuver much because, you know, there's only a really small chance that they're gonna hit you anyway, even if you barely move at all. So you don't really have that going for it, but a bit more firepower helps because the Arrow really struggles a bit to take down Constellations and Valkyries, although it is possible. So it compares pretty well to other craft in its size. Of course, it has problems comparing itself with what's currently kind of the meta build. If you wanna just have a package that does everything, which currently is the Freelancer Miz, because it has 4 size 3 gimbal guns, which is a bit ridiculous, to be honest. And then on top of it, it also has a huge amount of missiles that you can use if, you know, your 4 size 3 guns are not enough, which just saying that that dedicated fightercraft like the Saber have 4 size 3 guns, but they're only fixed, you know? I mean, the Saber is a smaller target and a bit more maneuverable, but the Freelancer is a tad ridiculous, I think, at times. But the Avenger is pretty great. God, that was really far away. Oh well. But as I said, Avenger doing a pretty good job so far. You know, I already have, you know, more dedicated and bigger ships. You know, for me, having an Avenger is really not worth much because my Constellation can do most of the things that the Avenger does to some extent and probably faster just because it has more firepower. But aside from that, you know, it's a pretty decent, cheap ship for if you just want to start out with Star Citizen but have way less frustrating time in the game than with the Aurora or Mustang, which still have a huge amount of problems and probably always will have because they're the air quotes starter ships, and we shouldn't make it too easy for those noob guys that came in late and didn't invest quite as much money, right? You know, so but with the Avenger you have a really great ship, you know. No question about that. Only thing that I noticed that bothers me a little bit is that it doesn't have many screens. I mean, the screens are kind of well integrated into the dashboard and all that, so that's definitely nice. But I do miss space for some screens. I think the Hornet has too many status screens, but I think the Avenger has, you know, like about one. It's like missing one. And so you need to switch the screens for other screens at times, and if you do that, they might just glitch out, and you... God damn it, why? What the hell did I just do? That was a weird maneuver. Alright, an Andromeda. That's, you know, that's something that we can actually take out. Unless it kills us first, because we have bit damage in the front section, which I think is critical, so if we lose that, the ship just gets destroyed. So let's maybe reallocate our shield power a little bit, but as you can see now, since I told the shield to adjust its strength to the front, and the shield needs to regenerate a bit. What the fucking shit did happen here? I didn't click anything on that screen yet. The shield went to 9% for some reason. Thank you. Goddess.
Hydrogen fuel. 50%.
So let's try that again, sorry. That's just, you know, it was holding at the power level that it had, but if we were getting shot at, I was wondering, I would have been wondering somebody, you know, why don't you regenerate? Why does it only get 10% power? I didn't tell you that. Probably a consequence of mouse wheel being used for way too many elements in this game. You know, for adjusting your top speed, it also scrolls through screens, or on some screens it goes through the strength level of whatever is being managed there. So that's what probably happened there, and it's a bit of a mess at times. Alright, there's another Valkyrie over there. Let's get in there real quick. Yeah, that's what White got additional power. Wait. Come on. Apparently one of my weapons got damaged because they have a slightly different cooldown between shots on the left and right one, which I don't like at all. Let's take a look. And also the screens tend to bug out sometimes if you try to change anything. Alright, apparently we're not going to check that out. Alright, but that was it. A little quick overview of the Avenger. As I said, it's a nice, beautiful ship that will do well for you with pretty much anything that you would ever require of it. Except maybe doing bulk trading, you know, it's a small ship. It's not a trading ship, but right now there's pretty much nothing in the game that you can't do with it, except maybe, you know, kill those bloody hammerheads. But they're ridiculous. Anyway, that's it for today. I'm not entirely certain which ship I'm gonna be looking at next. Maybe the current meta, you know, the Freelancer. Show you how crazy imbalanced they are, and they should be nerfed immediately, CIG, please! But maybe we'll see that next time. Have a good one.